If you've never seen the dead rise from the grave.
This is Joshua Sin with the Impossible Movement. I'm here with Billie, Edison. A little bit about how I came across her. As you know, I try to follow as many people as I can online with recidivism, recovery, or just people who are making a difference. And I remember the first time I saw your page was the first time was actually I saw you working with the Pacers and you traveling with them and doing cool stuff. And I was like, man, that's pretty cool. But when I saw you traveling and going to prisons and speaking, obviously that's a dream of mine, travel. And what really stood out was the Christ part of it. And so if you want to tell them a little about where you came from, where you grew up, and a little bit about your story.
Yeah, so I was born and raised here in Bloomington, lived with my mom. I have a brother and a sister. Dad was never really in the picture growing up. He had alcohol problems. And yeah, went to South and did a lot of sports and got into some drugs and alcohol pretty early in life.
What age do you think?
So started smoking pot at 10.
Oh.
And even before that, I had family members that thought it was funny to give me alcohol and get me drunk.
Right.
So yeah.
You think that was from dysfunctional in the family, or
Most definitely. Yeah.
Okay.
My mom had addiction problems. My dad, aunts, uncles. It was huge in our family.
So when did you see that kind of like lifestyle start steering into like actually getting in trouble?
Around the age of 15, I would say. Well, we got like, we were out in the woods and we were drinking and stuff, and the cops showed up. So our parents were called and things like that. But I didn't really get into a lot of trouble from all that for a while. I started getting pulled over. I'm trying to think. I never really got in trouble. I was pretty good at like talking myself out of it for a long time. But I mean, for years, it was just constant cover up,
Right.
trying to just maintain, and which I did for a long time. I ended up having 7 kids and they were all doing pretty good. And I don't know how. I mean, I thrived and raised those kids, but my mental health was just I guess from all the years of just doing those things, like 15, I was an alcoholic. 21, I filed bankruptcy for cocaine. So, I mean, the hits just kept coming. I jumped from relationship to relationship. I didn't know how to be alone. And I had 7 boys. And my relationship with my youngest son's father, that was pretty much like that's what really did me in, because Tegan was born with a lot of health issues.
Okay.
And
How old were you when you were going through this?
gosh, probably like 38.
38. Okay.
Yeah. He ended up leaving me for someone that he met at the church that we went to. And I can't blame him now, but at the time I just hated him. And it really caused me to spiral.
Right.
And all I could focus on was leaving the state. And I had a job offer.
Right.
And try to move to Florida, and they stopped me from doing that. The attorney was like, it's not worth it. It's going to cost you like $10,000 to fight this case. And I was very stubborn and didn't want anyone telling me what to do with my kids, my life. So I refused to not go. And I needed the $10,000, and I had met somebody through other people, and he suggested that I sell drugs. He was like, it'd take you probably 2 weeks to come up with 10 grand. And at that time in my life, I was so like depressed and just the anxiety, and yeah, I mean, life was just really bad. It was really, really bad at that time. I guess having a son with a disability, feeling like it was my fault, Marcus leaving, and just wanting, people always think if they move away,
Your problem's gonna go away.
Your problems are going to
Right.
go away. But, when you have addiction, you have problems with relationships, whatever it may be, it doesn't matter where you go. Those things are going to follow you. And so anyway, this guy like introduced me to some people, and I ended up going and buying a brick of cocaine, and then I had no one to sell it to, because even though I was in my addiction, my life was my children. So I'm like, nah, I don't know what to do with all this. And so he started introducing me to a bunch of people, and the next thing I know, I'm just hanging out with like some of the scariest people in life.
Right.
I don't even know what to say about that lifestyle besides it was just, I was constantly looking over my shoulder.
Yeah.
I was terrified. And one thing I knew for sure is like, I don't care what happens, I'm not going to prison. And it
Right.
was funny because I used to tell people if I get caught with drugs, I'm going to pretend like I'm shooting the cops and I'm just going to have them kill me. Crazy thing to think about because like you're either going to die in your addiction or you're going to go to prison. Like those are your two options, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So, and it's crazy. The things that you speak out loud, you know, the devil hears those plain as day.
Mm-hmm.
And he definitely set that scenario up for me. I started selling drugs March of 2016, and August I was arrested. And so the day they arrested me, I was at the gas station, and I was sitting out in the car, and two guys that were with me, they go into the gas station and they come back out and they get in the car. And just immediately after that, my whole vehicle is surrounded by U.S. Marshals. And I literally have a gun just that close to my head. And he's telling me, like, don't move, or I'm going to shoot. And I had drugs in my pocket. And the first thing I thought of was exactly what I was telling people out loud. You know, I'm going to act like I'm shooting them so they'll just kill me because I'm not going to prison. And that was the first time I heard God's voice. I wasn't really sure at the time because, you know, even though I had gone to church for 16 years, I had no relationship with Jesus, nor did I know that you needed one.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm sitting there and I'm thinking about doing exactly what I thought. And then I hear this voice to tell me to be still.
Right.
And I know this is crazy because I have guns pointed at me, but I was just like, I listened and I felt good about it. Like I felt really calm, and I'm surrounded by these guys screaming and yelling at me. And of course I'm pretending like I have no clue what they're talking about. And they throw the two guys out of the car and they get me out of the car, and I have drugs in my pocket. And when he tells me to empty my pockets, I'm like trying to hide the drugs, like I think I can do that or whatever.
Right.
And he's like, no, pull it all the way out. So, and I'm in a stolen vehicle. So yeah, it was not looking good for me.
Yeah, you know, and I forgot to mention this in the beginning, like there's so many women are going to benefit from hearing a story, whether they've been incarcerated or not. And I think one of the hard things I had to go through in my life is talking about, even sometimes today, people want to know details about my past or what. And I have to understand that Christ has delivered me from that part of my life, from the identity. And there is no shame. So there's no, one, grateful that you feel vulnerable enough to communicate that stuff. But by hiding it, you're giving the devil power. Because God, when I came up to, and I didn't mention this in the beginning, when I came up there to want to meet with you, because I wanted to pick your brain, you know, you are in areas that where I want to be, you know, as far as like people getting out and become successful, you have that. But as far as like a servant's heart and want to give back, you're doing that at the fullest, you know, traveling, receiving awards, and being able to be around some of the most dangerous prisons. You are helping out so many people. So when I had to meet with you and I came up there and you were giving me a tour of the facility, and I saw that when it comes to Christ, for sure, that he's been in your life. He's redeemed you. And it's like the story of Joseph. He's taken you from the depths of incarceration and, you know, poverty into a place where, as far as purpose goes, you're filthy rich. You know, like you were helping so many people.
So rich.
Yeah. And I mean, there's going to be so many people you meet at the event. They're like, dude, Josh was talking about you as soon as he got done meeting you. And I'm so glad a lot of people, part of Impossible, you're going to be able to reach people that I can't. You know, I was looking at, I was telling you this when I met you, as far as women, you know, Marilyn Grimes, she's local. She's done a great job painting a picture and being an example for people who've been incarcerated as a woman. Even January, a woman I had worked with, she's a great, but 7 years and now going back into these prisons, that's where these people are most receptive to change. You know, I think I stole your line. Someone was like, they were talking about something, I forget how it went out, but you know, I was talking to one of the guys that had to go do his testimony. I spoke to him out of jail. He came out here, and I was going to give his testimony. And I quoted you. I said, you know what's crazy? Are you doing it for yourself or are you doing it for God? He said, what do you mean? I said, well, Billie, she travels to some of the biggest prisons in front of the most influential people in the world, going there with them. think about that moment, what that looked like. And she said, it's not that I'm not scared. I have to show up.
Terrified.
I have to show up, because if not, I'm not allowing myself to be a vessel for Christ.
Yeah.
But I do it because I know I can do it for quote, word for word. But by you speaking that to me, I was able to share it to someone else who had fear and they were overthinking their speech. And I'm like, dude, it's not about being perfect. It's about just showing up, showing God that you're willing, So yeah, I was excited to people. The more they get to know you, they're going to see the spirit on you. And after having talked to you, I know this is just a beginning for you. I can't necessarily reach women, and I was telling a couple of my friends who are women, it's like, your love for Christ. And we were talking about this before it. Why? And I even had a text earlier today, like, all you hang around is broken people or addicts or people who've been incarcerated. Your future's looking real bright. And I'm like, dude, my walk with Christ is for people who can love the hardest, and people whose walk with God who come from our walk. It's not like a typical person going to church because, hey, I'm scared to go to hell. And those are my brothers and sisters too.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a difference when you're scared to go to hell and we're coming back from hell, and that's what our walk is aligned with. I rather vibe with people like you and like, Fuzi, these different people. Like, no, there's a sense of gratitude, because knowing where we came from, there's a full understanding of love. When we last met, and when your life is so busy, you have all these kids, what impressed me was you were willing to take time out of your day and go meet with someone who was struggling because they needed someone to talk to. That's what I was like, man, and to make me emotional, like, man, that's my type of person,
Yeah.
That's what fills my cup up. And I can see that's what's filling your cup up. And I have to remind myself sometimes when I'm like, hey, things aren't moving as quick or things aren't going. And you mentioned to me, you wrote in your journal when you were incarcerated, I'm going to blow your mind. Right? I think it's because in prison we've learned to have to be moment by moment and not have to see the whole staircase, because we can't.
Yeah. Definitely not.
He's giving you that. And it's funny because some of the things you spoke over to me, I don't have to overthink. I know I'm prepared. I know I'm obedient. And as a response, he was telling me that I'm going to blow your mind. Yeah, I'm excited for the women's event that's going to be coming up soon. And then at this Impossible Origin screening next week, and just a lot of people mingling and being able to hear a story, and then obviously sharing it on the podcast. So you, at that moment, they surrounded you. How many years did you get sentenced to?
I got sentenced to 16 and they suspended 4 to probation.
4 to probation? Okay.
Yeah, so my crime was committed here in Bloomington, and I did quite a, let's see, that was in 16. I was in the Monroe County Jail until I got transported to Rockville in February of 18. It's, I don't know why, but I love driving past the jail.
Which one?
The Monroe County Jail.
County? I run by it every morning, yeah.
Yeah, because it used to be such a sad place for people to drive by, like my family. My good friend Terry, she said that she used to have to take a different route when I was in there because she would just bawl her eyes out on her way to work, knowing I was in there. But what people don't understand is, like, that's where God, like, started doing his work. I can't even describe the things I went through in there, and I would love to go back in there, and I want to go into this cell where God saved my life, because
you remember what the number of the cell was?
It was the last one. As soon as you walk in the pod, it was the first one right there.
I remember the exact cell 101 on lockup at Branchville.
Yeah. They transferred me to so many different places.
I get it.
So, but I will never forget this. Like, it was the moment that God just changed everything. And, like I said, I'd gone to church for 16 years. I didn't know one Bible verse. I didn't know that you were supposed to have a relationship with Jesus. And so they book me, and I finally get up to the unit, and they put me in this cell, and I only get out for an hour a day because I'm max security because of my charges. I was charged going in with murder, felony murder, and robbery. And so I'm in this cell. I get out for an hour a day, and a lot of the women in the pod kept telling me to, like, read the Bible. And I had no idea what they were talking about, because I'm like, what is it gonna do for me? I'm going to die in prison. I was looking at 65 plus years. And I don't know, jail is very boring. So I was like, and I
agree.
hated to read.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but I used to hate to read. So I would just draw and do stuff all day, and I was so bored. And one day I was like, why not? Let's just read the Bible. And I was reading in the book of John, John 14:27, and it talked about peace I leave with you, my peace I give you. I do not give as the world gives. Do not let your hearts be troubled, and do not be afraid.
Mm.
Immediately after reading that verse, I just felt something come into my body. And it didn't come from the side, it didn't come from down here. It literally came from heaven. And it was like as if you turned an hourglass over. I mean, I felt it. My whole body just started. I had literally no control over what was happening to me. And I started just praising God and bawling. I just
Right.
started bawling, and I just started telling him that I loved him. And like I felt more love than I've ever felt in my entire life. There wasn't a drug that made me feel like that. There wasn't a man that made me feel like that. Having my kids didn't make me feel like that. Like it was the most amazing thing that had ever happened to me in my entire life. And I just knew from that moment, like, there was a God that loved me so much that, I mean, okay, so you think about it in the Bible, it talks about how God breathes new life into you, the
Right.
valley of dry bones. And he did that for me. Like, of all the people on the planet, he sees every last one of us, and I'm there on bended knee and I'm crying. And he literally breathed new life into me and changed my life in an instant. Like it was so, everything from that moment on was different. And gradually, like things just started changing, like the way I seen people, the way I loved people. I started to talk different, walk different, think different, see different. Like it changed everything. And when I first got to that jail, people hated my guts. Like it was terrible, the stuff they were putting me through in there. I couldn't even make a phone call because every time I would get on the phone, like the girls would start banging on the door. The girl that was killed in my crime, a lot of the people knew her. They didn't know the full story. So I was getting blamed for a lot of things. And so they ended up taking me out of the block. But the point I'm trying to get across is like those same people that hated me, I had the best relationship with them whenever I left to go to prison. Like it's so crazy how God can just turn everything
Upside
around in
down.
your favor. Yeah, I mean, it's really mind blowing. And I started writing sermons while I was in jail and preaching it to the block when I would come out for my hour. I started going door to door and praying with people, the salvation prayer. And I don't know, it's just all, your whole perspective on life changes whenever you encounter God.
Right.
And if it doesn't, you haven't encountered God, period. Everything changes. And I wasn't in the block very long before they pulled me out and they put me into segregation. And I was really upset about this because I'm like, I'm stuck in a room 24/7 by myself with the lights on 24/7. And sometimes I get out for an hour, sometimes I don't. But I didn't really understand it at the time. But like 2 months in, like all these just unexplained things started happening. Like God just started really working on me, talking to me. I would get books that would just show up in my cell, and God made it very clear that I would be working in some sort of ministry. And that just excited me so much because whenever you love God and you have that relationship with him, like that's really all you want to do is you want to serve him. You want to glorify him in everything that you do. So whenever I got to IWP and I was talking to Chaplain Blackburn, he's the one that explained that to me in a way that just, I was like, oh my gosh, I just love God so much. But he said, it wasn't your prosecutors that took you out of there, it was God, because he wanted to be your teacher. I was like, he loves us so much. He's so intentional. And I've got stories for days of the things that he showed me and did for me and just continues to do. So whenever I left there, I got to Rockville and I immediately signed up for the Plus program. And as soon as I finished that, I had a lot of trouble getting visits there. So I put in a transfer to go to IWP. And whenever I got there, I went into the RWI program. And then once I finished that, because my judge told me as long as I don't get in any trouble, like, you can come home early. I put in for a modification and had the judge, the prosecutor, everybody was on board with bringing me home early. And for some reason, like, I just felt it in my spirit, like that's not what I was supposed to be doing. And I just started praying, and God kept talking about the last mile over and over again. It was just coming from everywhere. So I prayed about it because all I was thinking about was like, oh my gosh, I have the opportunity to go home. And I don't understand why you would want me to stay here any longer than I have to. So I prayed about it, and I told God, I said, if you want me to stay and do this program, like, you're literally going to have to be so direct with me, because I want to leave. I want to go home. I want to see my kids. I want to be with my family. And so I told him, I said, have someone come up to me and say, you've been brought here for such a time as this. And the Global Leadership Summit was going on at the time. And I went the very next day after I'd said that prayer with God. And this lady that was the CEO of an aviation company was talking about how she got into it and all the things that she did. But just plain as day, she just looked out, and I swear she was looking right at me, and she said, you've been brought here for such a time as this. So he gave me my answer, and it was so crazy because as soon as that happened, like, I started crying. But I just knew, I was like, I have to trust him in this. Bad as I don't, you know how prison is. It's terrible. It's a terrible environment. But I knew that's what God wanted, and I knew he had a reason and a purpose for it, because he had already revealed so many other things to me and protected me and turned a 65-year sentence into, 16 do 12. I mean, just over and over again, showing me exactly who he is. And I may not like his timing. I may not like some of the answers, but he always, always shows me that his timing is perfect, and that he loves me, and his plan for my life is way better than anything I could ever come up with. So I signed up for the last mile. And, this is how I really knew that it was what I was supposed to be doing, because I'm terrible at math. So terrible at math. Don't ask me no math questions, because it's terrible. And so you're only allowed to take the test once to get into a program. Well, I failed it. I failed the math part, passed everything else. And she said, we'll let you take it again. Failed it again. I failed it 4 times. And she kept allowing me, because I would literally go sit on my bunk for hours. And I started teaching myself math. I had never even taken algebra, because you don't have to take algebra whenever I was in school. That wasn't like something you had to take. So I did. I sat there and I sat there and I sat there and taught myself, and finally passed it.
Good for you.
To get into the class. And the class was super hard, but it gave me purpose. And you know how it is. Like, I mean, for me anyway, when I was in prison, I wanted to stay super busy. Like, it just helped pass the time, made me feel better about myself. And so I did as much as possible to, like, keep myself busy and in my Bible and going to church, doing all the things I needed to do to become a better person.
So when you graduated the program, how long did you have till you got out?
As soon as I graduated,
and so for those people don't know what Last Mile is, what is that?
Program? It's a program inside the prisons. It's not in every prison, but and it teaches you web development, front end and back end. And for someone that had worked in the medical field for 23 years, it was quite a shock, But I did graduate. So let's see, I started August of 21 and graduated in January or February of 23. And then I was released in May.
Of what year?
23.
23?
Yeah.
I think when we talked the first time, I went to a Monday night church group, and one of my close friends, but he's also like a spiritual mentor, he said something that made me think of you, and kind of like what's going on with Impossible is like when you see God, he'll restore all the years that you've lost. And I thought about, they talked about Israel. They gave them that promise, and a journey that was meant to take 40 days took 40 years, right?
Yeah.
So we spent some time in the wilderness when we decided. Another concept, real quick to rewind, you said you go by that jail and a lot of people with a bad place, but for you it's a happy place. I remember the first time I experienced Christ in a jail, I was curious, but all I hear was jailhouse religion.
Mm-hmm.
When I came around later and I was saved, and I looked back, I came across the scripture. It says, Isaiah 55:6 says, seek the Lord while he may be found. And why it made so much sense is when muddy water is still, it becomes clear.
Yeah.
I knew, and with everything I'd gone through, I tried my best, and that's where it got me. I had to try something else. And when I allowed God to come into my life, you see everything completely different. I mean, your gratitude, and we talked about this. You experience heaven in prison. You have a sense of peace. You have this new identity. You're able to forgive yourself. You learn to love yourself. But yeah, seeing how God has used all those moments at perfect timing, allowing you to go through. Paul talks about in Romans, like he's allowed us to have a thorn in our flesh, so when we are weak, he is strong.
Yeah.
He allowed you to depend on him enough to show you that with him what you could do. And look at all the things he's lined out in your life, like being lined up with the Pacers to work with them. And I know our values are different than what the world is, but being able to travel, I was watching when you were traveling to OKC, right? People whose values haven't changed, that's the salt of the earth. They're like, dang, I want to be able to do that. And you bring them in, you attract them. They're like, well, how'd she get it? Christ. He's opening and closing doors that no man can open and close. And then
Tearing them right off the hinges.
Yeah, like this. And so we need to kind of give us a timeline since you've been out, and just because, yeah, right now going to San Quentin next month, it's like, okay, I've been there before, but what was it like? I want to see kind of like the timeline, you getting out, memorable moments as you've gone. It's been almost, 2.5 years?
So I got out May 8th of 23. And I don't ever look at going into a prison as I've already been there, because one of the things that I didn't know before I left prison was, what was my purpose? What was I going to be doing for God when I left?
Right.
I had no idea. And it wasn't until I went into my first prison that I knew that. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. The Pacers have given me that platform, a huge one, and I just appreciate it so much. So whenever I got out, I couldn't find a job. I ended up going to Goodwill to work, and then Molly, who works for the Last Mile, or did work for the Last Mile, she's the one that said they have this opportunity available, and she wants me to apply for it. So I did, and it took a while, but I interviewed for the position and got it, and I was just floored. Like, I couldn't even believe it, because I've been a Pacer fan my entire life.
And you got a nice office.
So, yeah, I do have a nice office, and I love all the people I work with, too. Like, I'm just surrounded by really smart, cool people. So it's been incredible. Like, I used to go to games, and I used to be sitting in my seat going, man, I wish I was that person walking around with the credentials on,
Yeah.
And now I am that person, and I get to bless so many people with cool opportunities because I can take them on the court. They can get their picture taken. My best friend got her picture taken with Obi Toppin. That just made her whole year. And I missed a lot of time with my kids. And now I get to do some really awesome things for them. And they love going to the games, of course. And there's just, I don't know, we just get spoiled there. And of course, Steve Simon, one of the owners of the Pacers, he is, I don't even know how to explain how kind he is. He is extremely kind, and he came to meet me on my first day and to let me know if I need anything at all, that he's there for me. And, he's going into San Quentin with me here in a couple weeks. And he loves people, and he really wants the best for anybody coming out of incarceration. And, to have someone like that on our side is really cool. We need that. And I was just talking to Lauren in HR today just about like what this opportunity has done for me.
Right.
I mean, I'm just so grateful. Like, it's changed everything. And again, like, it's given me that platform to go and share my story, because I love nothing more than to like go inside the prisons to let them know that there is hope. There is hope. Don't lose it because you're in a dark place. Work hard while you're in here. And I believe that's why God allows us to go to prison, is because he wants us to sit down and just like really take a look at our lives. And he wants to be able to reach us, because I know there wasn't anyone reaching me on these streets. I was I was so far gone and I wasn't listening to nobody. So for him to, to want to do that for us, like it's so powerful. It's so
No, I
powerful.
agree. I think, you know, when my brother died, and when our family, my mom, my dad, my brother died, and then my other brother, he was still alive. When life took its course and I got incarcerated, it showed me prison saved my life, because I was able to I stepped out of that current of life, and I was able to trial and error my addiction to where I was able to live. There was so many years of problems that I had to deal with. It was overwhelming. So
Yeah.
I got removed from that situation, troubleshooted it, was able to discover an identity, create certain habits, create new beliefs, and was able to gain traction in my life. He never had that opportunity. And so, prison did save my life. And I think, when I was able to see your office and see how you're able to move, you could tell how big that culture is.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone loves you. You're talking about Mr. Simon and how you would never even know he was the owner or that he was
No.
rich because of how
Yeah.
humble he is, and how cool, that organization is like that. And it paints a why the Fever and the Pacers are where they're at right now
Yeah.
in that culture. It was like a moment for me walking on the court, and you tell me that moment, because I could tell you visually remember that moment where you're like, hey, I wish I could be one of those people. And now God is allowing you to do
Yeah.
that. And then, I was just asking you like, what's next, and what I could do to help in any capacity. And I told a couple friends, I told Lauren, and I told Shelby, and I think I was talking about you to Faith today, but one of the things that just reconfirmed that we were meant to cross paths, one for the kingdom of God, but you said God's opening up so many doors for us. That's what I'm big on for
Mm-hmm.
impossible is we. And because we are outnumbered as Christians, we are outnumbered as far as like people placing a stigma behind us. Um, I think you get enough of us put together with the inner belief in ourselves. Another thing, real quick, to intercede on it, the fact you've been out 2.5 or 2 years and 5 months, and God's still the main focus. So to go back to that point, you get enough of us who've come from that and who have been able to stay humble, and our wives remain the same.
Yeah.
We're gonna make a difference. And like I think you don't realize how many people you're influencing. Although I'm a dude, I was still looking at the stuff you're doing on social media, and you inspired me. And I think like the message of impossible is showing people it's possible.
Yeah.
That's where it goes from impossible to possible. And think about it, he's done it in 2 years and 5 months. You know what I'm saying? He's doing it for your life. And so I think it's only going to continue to, get more momentum. I told you I'm heard half your story. I interrupted you, that you need to write a book.
Yeah.
You were able to figure it out. Why would you not give a blueprint to somebody else on your experiences? And so coming to the event, and then you tell me the other day a facility reached out, have an opportunity to go in there. There's nothing more that I enjoy than be able to go speak to broken people,
Mm-hmm.
or just loving on them or
Yeah.
hearing them out. And so super grateful, one, coming to the event, support, being open to be more a part of it. If you look back at your life, is there a specific moment in your life that you look back and like, okay, that's where everything changed? Was it that jail experience, or was there another moment you felt like, was it the moment where you were able to find trust in them when you asked them, hey, tell me you're here for such a reason as this? Was there a specific moment?
It's definitely the jail moment.
The jail moment?
That's just something that I will never ever ever forget. Like my
Mm-hmm.
heart was changed
Right.
instantly. We're supposed to love people exactly where they're at.
Mm-hmm.
That's how people know who we are.
That's good.
And when people say, "Oh, you're broke," you hang around with broken people. Absolutely.
Yeah,
The whole world is broken.
for sure.
So you're hanging around with broken people too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's probably one of the biggest things I've noticed about being a Christian is that I truly love people exactly where they're at. You can't you can't try to change people. God doesn't do that, you know?
It's a phenomenon for me, because I don't know why that happened to me. My only thought process was I knew how hard it was for me. I had good intentions,
Yeah.
and I knew how hard it was for me to get to a point. And the only thing I can relate it to is like, hey, it just made me be compassionate towards other people, knowing I was once blind, I was once
Mm-hmm.
ignorant, I was once being led astray, I was once. We talk about the amazing grace. Like now I'm able to see,
Yes.
and there were specific moments for me And it was one that caught my eye. I think the first thing that hit home was when I was 19 and I was on lockup. When I got in a fight, I went to the hole and my eyes opened up that I had no one to love me unconditionally anymore. You take for granted that. That's when I had Luke 15. Let's open up the Bible. I grew up in church, but really wasn't spiritual. And I read Luke 15, the prodigal son. And I understood that God unconditionally loved me. Mm-hmm. And I just remember the overwhelming blanket of feeling that came over me. And it was just real at that moment.
Yeah.
But there's two other moments I was suicidal when I was incarcerated. And it was God indirectly, through love, bring me back to a grounding technique to remind myself to not give up. That I can't allow this to continue. I had to make adjustments in my life. But yeah, I don't understand. But yeah, I'm the same wavelength. I don't care if someone's race or religion or sexual purpose now. I just want them to feel the same experience of love that changed my life. So that's cool you mentioned that. If there was a younger version of you sitting across this table, what would you tell them?
That's always so deep. That younger girl was very, what's the word? Not broken, but just, what's the word I want to use? I mean, obviously she was lost, but I think I would most definitely tell her that, like, you're loved,
Yeah.
like God loves you so much, and the bad decisions you're going to make are only going to make you stronger.
Right.
A lot of people, they just live in this they just feel guilty and shame and stuff. And what people need to realize is, like, that will destroy you.
100%. Yeah.
It will absolutely destroy you. And I have gotten so quick to, like, when I make a mistake or someone else has done something wrong, like the girl I went and talked to that night I was telling you about, I told her, I said, you have to stop. You have to stop beating yourself up because it's done. It's over. Like, and now you just go on from here. And I think that's what we need to tell our younger selves is, like, you're going to get past this. Like, you don't have to live in guilt and shame your entire life and beat yourself up for decisions that you make. Growth don't come from that.
Right.
I mean, it just keeps you stagnant and it's not healthy. But yeah,
So if there was there's a lot of people in our community and people that watch, women and men, who I know their desire when they first come out of recovery centers or jail, or they've been woke to some degree, they're motivated. And one of the biggest things I learned for myself was, that initial motivation will get me going, but it's going to be consistency that keeps me going. If there's someone out there who's wanting to change and maybe on the verge or have the desire, maybe lukewarm, is there a piece of advice that you would give them that helped you, that might hit home for them and helping them to make that decision for themselves?
My biggest thing is quitting is not an option. You cannot quit on yourself. You just can't, because you're maybe like a second away from a breakthrough. You know what I mean? It's like when people commit suicide. Like, I've been there. I've wanted to die before. And you just have no idea, like, what's 2 minutes away. You know what I mean? So I get asked that a lot, and it's just, you can't quit on yourself. Like, quitting is not an option. Like, you're worth it. You can't give up on you.
Yeah, no, I agree. One of the first books I read that I got put onto was Think and Grow Rich. And it says the most common cause of failure is when someone quits when they're overcome by temporary defeat. I think I had so much remorse for decisions I had made, as far as, like, the people I'd affected, people I loved, about why did I cause them so much harm? Why did I hurt them? And when I looked at the Word of God, it says there's a difference between worldly sorrow and godly sorrow. Worldly sorrow is like, hey, I'm sorry I got caught. Godly sorrow is true learning to change of behavior. Let's see his actions. And I know, coming from that lifestyle, you said you talked yourself out of a lot of situations. I knew at one point in time the talking part had to be over with. I was good enough at talking. I might have good intentions, but I had to tell myself, actions got to follow. And that's where true peace, Gandhi said it best. He said, true peace is found when what you say, what you do, and what you think are in perfect harmony.
Yeah.
I had to figure that out. You know what I'm saying? And in doing so, when the moments I did want to quit, what I didn't want to be my narrative? And Josh wasn't remorseful. He wasn't changed. Because when I got out, when I got impossible tattooed on me, and I know this is selfish and I may not probably be the best reason, the people who were in my crime or crimes and stuff I did throughout my whole life, I want them to know the rest of my life I committed to earning their apology, even if they don't ever forgive me. I want them to know from the deepest part of my heart that wasn't Josh. And on the flip side of that, I want to reset the debt I've put into society for empowering a lifestyle that I completely hate now. And so that was what kept me from quitting. Was I said I love my mom, I said I love my dad, I said my brother, say, our girlfriends, my friends, all the ripple effects. When you get incarcerated or you go through addiction, you're not the only person that's affected.
Yeah.
Like your kids. You're able to be restored and redeemed. And what's most important, you show them when you fall how to get back up. How powerful.
Yeah.
Like our success isn't defined by what we accomplish, but why we have to overcome.
Yeah.
And what we in the process of what we accomplish. And a lot of people might be hearing that story. That shows grit. The fact that you were dealt that hand, and especially now the fact that you were able in 2.5 years to experience the success. Some of these people in like early 20s, late 20s, or mid 30s are like, oh, it's too late. My life, like God can take you 0 to 100.
I'm living my best life now, and I'm 51. So
yeah,
it's never too late.
I know. That's what I'm saying.
Never too late.
Yeah. And so, but 2 years and 5 months like that, you had a company, Billie Second Chance. What's the name of the
Billie's Fair Chance.
Billie's Fair Chance.
Yeah.
Which I'll tag in this video. Having a documentary done on you, interviews, traveling the country with some most influential people, go inside of prisons, and now these programs are asking you to come in and their graduation, speak on them. When you're in California, you speak briefly on the award you won through the Jordan brand?
Yeah, so I got a phone call one day, and they asked me if I would be willing to come out to California and accept an award for outstanding leadership. And it was through the Michael Jordan brand, and I was just blown away. I was like, are you serious right now? Yeah. And they were like, yeah, and we want you to get up and speak. And, of course, I'm terrified of that. It was crazy, though, how much peace I had when I was doing it. And there was over 300 people there, easy. But it was just, I don't know how to explain it. Like, how does that happen? How does that happen?
You got to pinch yourself.
Yeah. I mean, it's just unbelievable. My kids can't believe it. My mom can't believe it. My mom's like, never in a million years did I see any of this coming.
Now, real quick, because one of the things I struggle with, a lot of times people are like, Josh, how do you move? You got these visions, I don't have this and that. This is proof you don't necessarily need a vision, because you're placing your active faith and trust in God, and you're taking it step by step. And he's like, man, I'll blow your mind. And he's doing it. So just for proof for some of those people, not that I'm a visionary, but they're like, I'm a dreamer. Look what he's done in you. You don't have to have that visionary or dreamer aspect of yourself. You just got to show up and show up for God, and not forget where you came from, but the same tools he gave you when he awoke you, carrying those out here. And your purpose the whole time has not changed, is to help and empower people.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And you're definitely right about I think I told you this when we were talking, like, I don't have like this big vision right now. Like, he just, all of a sudden it's like, this is what you're doing.
Yeah.
And people reach out, and he knows, like, I'm going to go.
Yeah.
Because I've already told him. It doesn't matter how scared I get. Like, I'm going. I don't care if I pass out. When I wake up, I'm going to continue talking. Like, it doesn't matter. I've already told him, use me, send me, right. I will go. Because my favorite thing to do in the whole world is to talk about God and what he's done for me. I mean, I deserved hell. That's exactly what I deserved. I deserved hell. And I am just, oh my gosh, my life it's not perfect, but it's
well, and that's what's funny. A lot of people have been, why? They don't deserve that. Like, even when I had people throw my probable cause affidavit to other people, I forgive them because they don't understand the mercy and grace and the blood of Jesus, why he died on the cross.
Yeah.
And, light, there's no way darkness can understand light. It's completely contrary. So, it's cool, on the outside looking in, seeing all these blessings. And, why I knew I had met Fuzi, I think the same day as I had met you. I knew him before that, but coming in contact, he's great energy, definitely a connection, and we both knew we were here for a reason. God is building an army right now. You said God just inserts the right people in your life for the right reason. I feel the same way about you. I immediately told all the women that are part of Impossible and that are in my immediate circle of influence, and I told my guys, like, man, God just keeps bringing, because you're a warrior. and there's capacities of the women in your walk in your faith with God is added dimension, that synergistically our strengths overlap each other's weaknesses, and how we
Yeah.
can collectively come together and be a body. Fuzi was telling me I think it was during his podcast, he was talking about he would pray in Psalms. He's an artist that may God bring the right people into his life.
Mm-hmm.
And when we left, he made God brought you in my life for a reason.
Yeah.
We're going to build. And that's what I love about Impossible. Like, dude, I see your worth, with the book and these other opportunities. I want to figure out what we can do to empower you and your message on the biggest platform, because ultimately we're here for the same cause. It's advance the kingdom of God.
Yeah. I've been pretty excited since I met you, because I just feel, how like you can just feel the God's spirit just stirring in you.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I feel. I know he's very intentional, and I know he's got a plan. So
yeah, I was telling one of my friends the other day, it's hard not to be associated with broken people, because when it comes to unconditional love, like, really, there's nothing you can do to separate you from love of God. And so I'm an imitator of Christ. I'm always gonna have your back. It doesn't matter what you do. I feel like we're going to be on the same wavelength. And just like with my other brothers and sisters who are in Christ who've been broken, it's hard sometimes to be able to relate to someone when you've had nobody. You know how important it is to, under all conditions, be there for that person.
Yeah.
So I look forward to be able to earn your trust in that, and continue to be a fly on the wall. 2 years and 5 months, it blows me away, and excited to see where it goes. If you want to be remembered for a message as far as like a legacy, like, what is your life story? What do you want it to tell? Like, if you could be remembered as one thing, or your story as you're talked about whenever you pass, what do you want that to be?
That I love Jesus, that I loved him so much, and that I would do anything for him, scared and all. Like, I want people to see Jesus. Yeah.
I think one of my mentos that I'm gonna remember you by forever. I know we got plenty more memories and stuff to come, but I thought it was so powerful how you framed that response when you're going in front of some of the biggest influential people in the world, and you're speaking at some of the biggest prisons, the most notorious prisons in the world. And you said, I'm not a good public speaker, right? And if you don't do public speaking, speaking is scary, right? Especially on that stage.
Yeah.
I don't do it, and I don't do it based off my fear, but I do it for the obedience and love of God. And I forget the exact words you used, but I have to do my part for him. I feel like I'd be doing him a disservice and what he's done in my life by not sharing the platform and the resources and the things he's been doing for me. And I always remember that, because there's a lot of times in day-to-day activities that you feel like you don't want to go through a certain situation, or you don't want to have a certain conversation. But at the end of the day, you're preventing God to be shown through that situation by not acting upon that, or putting yourself to where you can be vulnerable or exposed. And it's a pride thing. For me, it's like reminding myself, like, Josh, this is about God. And that's what, for me, a big transformation was being mindful of make sure it's about his kingdom and not mine.
Well, and that's how we overcome too. And if we don't share our testimony, who else is, it's not just about us, it's about other people. And that's another reason why I do it. And, Steve Simon told me whenever I started there, you don't have to do one single interview to keep this job. And I said, no, but I do. Like, I have to do these, because I need people to see that there's light. And, prison is such a dark place. And, you get beat down on a daily basis there, your character and your just everything. So I know how dark it is in there, and I know that people need to hear not just my story, but everybody's story that's come out and been successful. And
as for every 100, I don't know the math, but I would say there's 5 to 10%.
I don't know the math either.
Yeah, I know, but there's 5 to 10% of staff that are there who generally come in. And I just want to give a quick shout out to Tiffany, because I brought her up. Yeah, you said you had met her too, and from day one since I've gotten out, she's been super supportive. And I don't know her why behind it. I just know this: she loves people, is genuine. She's so supportive of so many people are coming out. Although, a lot of times people do get a negative rapport for going in, and she doesn't get paid for anything she does. The fact she's able to come in there and love, just want to give her a shout out. And
Yes.
yeah, I was a terrible, talking about math, you're terrible. I was terrible English composition. She had a lot of work to do with me when we were in the writing class. I was like, dude,
Yeah.
you're working with the bare minimum right now. You know what I'm saying? So, well, I appreciate having you on. Where can they find the documentary? Is it on YouTube?
It's on YouTube, yeah.
Okay.
Billie's Fair Chance.
Billie's Fair Chance. Yeah. So, hopefully people become aware of you and how they can learn from you, and they can reach out to you on Facebook if they want, and they can kind of see how God's going to continue to progress and use you.
Yeah, and it's pretty cool too. You know, if you Google me, it used to be like a lot of negative stuff, and now like you just have to keep scrolling and scrolling and scrolling, because it's all, you know, all positive things that I'm doing.
Hopefully that happens for me soon.
You have now. If you've never seen perfect